Welcome back to Visited by Voices Live on a Friday evening. I am joined today by author and almost poet laureate of the horror genre, in a sense, Doungjai Gam. How badly did I do with that after practicing?
Close, Doungjai Gam.
Okay, well, we're going to go with Gam from now on because I'm hopeless.
Most people do, so it's all good.
Most people are hopeless too, so it works.
Well, I didn't say that.
Oh, I'll say anything. You never know. How are you tonight?
I'm good, exhausted. Yeah, I don't know. Not
so
tipsy, yeah.
You seem to be surrounded by media, which is something that I think all of us should be.
Yes. This is probably about a quarter of our book collection. I've got more stretching down over here. We've got stuff on the floor in boxes and storage, and still we continue to buy more books.
I bet every time you do any kind of a signing that has other writers involved, you feel like, you do that book swap at the end, and then you end up with 5 or 6 books, and that adds to the pile. And then the to be read piles get out of control because you feel guilty about not reading everyone else's work immediately and all that.
I think these are. I think this is a good portion of this is probably just to be read bookshelves. Honestly, it's not even piles; it's just shelves.
This is my to be read room. No. So the first question is always, how'd you get bit by the horror bug? How did you get into this?
So I had my mind warped at a pretty young age. I remember, some of the first memories I remember are seeing snippets of Carrie and The Shining on TV. It was most likely with my grandmother or my cousin, both of whom were into horror. And, I'd be like asleep on their couch or they thought I was sleeping. And I'm just like here taking peeks at, wow, look at all those, look at like the prom burning down and stuff. And, or Jack Nicholson running through the maze at the end of The Shining and stuff. Like those are the things I remember. I just remembered sort of the images just like stuck with me. And it took me a while before I figured out which movies those were. And Carrie is like a big, huge personal favorite of mine. I just identify so much with her, just kind of being that weird kid. And at the risk of TMI, even with the other stuff, the blood and whatnot. I'm not going to go into that too much. But over here, I've got like I think at least 2 or 3 copies of Carrie here in this bookcase. I have like the Cemetery special edition and whatnot. And, and then let me see if I can reach it from here. My little Funko.
So the real question is that Sissy Spacek Carrie, or are we talking in one of the remake Carries?
No. Sissy Spacek version is the only version as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. I think there's certain directors and creative teams like that. I don't even understand why anyone would take on the effort. Like De Palma made Carrie. Who wants to follow that?
Yeah, to me, that movie is it's perfection, and don't mess with it. And I remember an ex-boyfriend had brought me to see The Rage, Carrie 2 opening night in the theater. And when it was over, he turned to me and the first thing he said was, "I am so sorry I made you sit through that."
I guess I liked seeing Betty Buckley again for a moment. That was probably about it.
It was cool that they, had scenes from the original and stuff in there. But yeah, that was about the only thing I liked, really.
But who would have thought that would be thought of almost nostalgic compared to like the remakes to come?
Right?
Yeah, I don't know what to say, because at least that wasn't trying to retell the first story exactly. Anyway, it was sort of a soft reboot, but
yeah.
But so I take it from that description that King was probably your gateway to literary horror?
Yeah. The 3 that I probably started off with in the beginning was King and Kuntz and V.C. Andrews. A friend of mine in grade school had been reading the Flowers in the Attic series, the Heaven series, and she had let me borrow some of the books, and it just kind of took off from there. I know, like at one point when I was a kid, I was like, boy, when I get older, I would really love to like just do like a whole, like direct a whole series of like the Flowers in the Attic series. And yeah.
Yeah, that didn't so much happen. Well, not just you not doing it. That didn't happen for pretty much anyone. I mean, there was a theatrical and then a made for television of Petals and Petals, right? The second.
Yeah, Petals was the second one.
And there was a television version of that, I think, but that was it. It never went any further.
I think Lifetime may have done I don't know if Lifetime did all 5 of them or
really?
not. But I think I'd seen the first one, and I don't know. I don't know if it was really my thing so much, but
let's talk a little bit. Your work, probably best known for a Glass Slipper Dream Shattered, and Watch the Whole Goddamn Thing Burn, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've had a ton of anthology appearances of your short material as well. So what drove you to be a creator? What made you say, okay, I love this stuff when I see it on the screen or when I read it on the page, but I want to do this?
Oh geez, I'm trying to think. I remember in high school I had to one of our assignments in my English class freshman year was that we had to write a story. And I had never really thought about doing anything like that before. And so I did it, and I was like, all right, this isn't so bad. And then we had to do a similar assignment sophomore year. And I had written this thing. I don't even remember what it was. It was like some snippet about, like, I know there were like rats in a sewer tunnel. And my classmate that had to read it, she was kind of like this really tough girl to me, like, really tough, wouldn't get grossed out by anything. And she got really skeeved by the rats. And I was like, I can have this kind of an effect on people. That's really kind of cool. And then by then, I think I'm blanking, sorry. No, I think it was the following year I had won a short story contest, and then it just kind of started snowballing from there, and I was like, trying to write novels, and I don't know, maybe one day I'll write one. I'm having so much fun, like, just doing short things right now.
Well, just be ready to be wed to that thing for a couple years. It's a different experience, that's for sure. Bryce McVicker already has a question for you. And that question is, which author has had the largest influence on your style of writing?
Hey, Bryce. I know Bryce. He's a friend of mine. Biggest influence, probably Thomas Tessier and Jack Ketchum are two of the big ones. V.C. Andrews also. As far as with Tom, I actually worked with him for a little while. That was how I met him. And I found out that he was an author, so I did that thing that I guess you're not supposed to do that thing. It's frowned upon, where you kind of like give a folder to this author and you're like, can you read my work? And like, tell me.
You got to do it at some point, though. You got to break that rule in order to learn that it's a rule.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I did it, and he liked it, and he just kind of took me under my wing, and he was like, you don't have to, write horror just because I write horror. And but it just felt right to me. I mean, I don't know that I'm really like full on horror. I just kind of say like dark fiction, but I don't know.
I tend to include a very wide swath of fiction in the horror category because I think it's defined by the emotions it evokes as opposed to by setting or by another trope. Not that it doesn't have tropes, but the tropes are not what define it. Otherwise, there's no way we can have, Shirley Jackson rubbing noses with Ed Lee. Just can't happen in any other genre. But because there's a set of emotions that the genre evokes, I think it's much wider than people give it credit for.
Yeah.
To use a film analogy, because not everyone has read all the same books, I get it. We have to live in a world where people understand that Jaws is a horror film, and so is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's okay. They're thematically very different. Even in texture, they're very different, but they belong. It's a very wide tent. So never feel like you're on the outskirts. We're all on the outskirts. Like there is no center. And I think that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. I feel like I need to be reminded of that, like I don't know, constantly, because I'm always feeling like I'm on the outside.
Well, I think that's very true of most people who find their way to horror, though. I think there is something about the outsider presence. I don't. Now, Jamie is not in the chat that I can see, but she'll correct me because she's the exception to this rule. But I usually say it's usually not the quarterbacks or the cheerleaders that end up into horror. You know, it's usually the kids at the back of the classroom hoping not to get called on by the teacher because they were really daydreaming and doodling on their on the paper cover to their school books. So. Jacob actually has a question for you as well. What is your favorite short story collection?
Hey, Jacob. Gosh, I have to name just one.
No, you can answer his question however you would like.
Oh dear.
That's the beauty of the democracy of our system.
So I love Ghost Music by Thomas Tessier. I love Peaceable Kingdom by Jack Ketchum. Let me see. I'm going to refer to the shelves behind me to like get some other ones that I've read recently. Couple others that I read recently that I really dug were Dark Blood Comes from the Feet by Emma J. Gibbon. And let me find it. I'm going to mess up his title. I know I am. More Funkos. Sorry. Wrong book. Okay. As Summer's Mask Slips and Other Disruptions by Gordon B. White. Those were a couple that I read last year that were just really, really great. And gosh, what else? I probably should have like spent a little bit more time like looking at my bookcases this evening, just trying to like get other things.
See, that would be a tough one for me too, because if you're talking single author collections, which I think is what he's referring to, I don't think he actually means anthologies.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, certainly any of the 4 Hodge collections, but probably Convulsion Factory would be at the top of my list, I guess.
God. Yes, he's another one. He's been a big influence on me as well. I freaking love everything of his that I've read. The collections, the novels, my God.
Yeah, I've said it before, but when you get down to it, I think the Prototype probably is the best modern horror novel.
I don't think I've read that one. I should look that up.
It will kill you. It'll absolutely tear out your heart and spit on it, but you need to do it.
Oh man.
Because you know how Brian tends to really wear you down?
Mm-hmm.
This is the one where he's digging in the bedrock. I mean, it's brutal.
Oh damn.
Yeah, I really strongly suggest that. But how about anthologies? What anthologies have been really influential for you, especially since you focus on shorter material, at least at this point in your career?
Gosh, let me think here. I know a series that I read a lot when I was younger. Not all that much younger, but and I don't even like really write, like I don't really lean much towards erotic horror, but the Hot Blood series, like that was one that I picked up an awful lot. All right, let me see.
That first Hot Blood introduced a lot of people to a lot of writers. That lineup is insane when you look back at it now. For a lot of people,
like Tom was in there, Petey Kasich was in there. Actually, that was how I first the first Brian Hodge short story I read was in one of those. Graham Masterton, he's another one that he's had a lot in there. He's really good.
Absolutely.
Let me see here. Yeah, I know. Sorry.
No, this is fine. It's fine.
Another one that's more recent. Eulogies. Let me grab. Eulogies 2, Tales from the Cellar. That's another one that had a lot of really. If I could. I have my contact lenses in and I can't see tiny print. So I'm just like trying to see who's in here. I mean, it was Christopher Jones, Nancy Calanta, and Tony Tremblay were the editors on it. And I don't know if they have a fourth one coming out or not. But that series has been really good also.
Yeah, I was pop out with with Charles Grant's Shadows anthologies, which were so important to me as a young man. And of course, Tom Monteleone's Borderlands anthologies, which...
Oh, yes.
Unreal. Talk about people who just didn't settle. They wanted the best, and they gave you the best on every page. And there was no sacrifice. It had to be top quality.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. So turning to your work from that, so a project like Glass Slipper Dream Shattered, how did that manifest to you? How did you know you wanted to? How did you know you want to write it? And then, I mean, I'm not asking for your writing process because that's kind of pointless to anyone but yourself, right? I mean, everyone's going to go about it different. But how did you put aside the mental space that it just takes to take on a project like that? Because you're meticulous with your wording. Like, I'm sloppy as hell compared to you. You are meticulous in comparison. That's why I said the whole poet laureate thing is kind of, you're so involved in flow and rhythm of your prose. How do you get that mental space?
Thank you, first of all, for all of that. Although I do have to say, like, if there's anybody who's deserving in the horror world of the poet laureate title, it's Linda Addison. Linda fucking Addison. She's amazing. I love her. Now, as far as this, I got my start basically. It's been almost 10 years now since the first time. Nikon eBooks had this like monthly flash fiction contest, and you had to write. They would give you a theme, and it was like 100 words or less. And I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. So it took a couple tries, but I actually won, and that was like, you know, and I kind of call that like my first publication. And then it took me another year before I got something, and then it took maybe another year of like entering these things on and off before I finally got the knack for this, you know, writing this out in 100 words or less, and just finding, I guess, the formula that worked for me. And I was, you know, trying to write slightly larger things. And I had written this one story called What Remains, and that ended up being my first sale to Lamplight Magazine, Jacob Haddon. And he was at the time a judge on these monthly contests. So he had reached out to me, and he was like, hey, I just wanted to tell you that I really, really loved this particular story, Best Served warm. Love, lust, obsession, whatever. And he said that he really liked the phrase in there, like a girl with glass slipper dreams. And he was like, something like that might make a really good title for a collection. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I think something like, you know, Glass Slipper Dreams Shattered or something. And, you know, so we just sort of talked about it. That was that. And then a couple months later, it was, we were at Anthicon. It's that con is not in existence anymore, but it was up in New Hampshire. And we were hanging out at the bar. It was me, Jacob, and a couple other guys. And he was like, so, you know, when we were talking about this thing, that was me kind of like saying, hey, I want to like put out your collection. I was just like, really? And it was like my birthday too. So it was just like, you know, best birthday gift ever. But I'm starting to ramble. I'm sorry. But
you're good. You're good. Love stories.
So like that took me, so from when we talked about it to when the book came out, it was just over 3 years. I am a very, very slow writer. God awful slow. Infuriatingly slow. I am that person who sits there. I'll write like 2 sentences. I don't like this, and I'm going to just start self-editing right from the beginning, and then it just kills my desire to like want to write anything. So that's why nothing gets done. But so we were working on putting this together, and then 2016 happened, and 2016 was a personal shit show for me. It started off with my mother's best friend dying. A month later, my brother died very unexpectedly. Thank you. And then like a month later, there was another death. And then not that long after that, I left my now ex-husband. And then there was more death after that, other friends. And a lot of what went into the collection was just a lot of my repressed anger and my grief and sorrow too about, things ending. I mean, where it was the case where, I'm the one who, said, okay, this isn't working. I need out. I remember somebody telling me, okay, maybe it was your idea to do the divorce, but it's still going to fuck you up. And it totally did. And, but I mean, a lot of it too was just, after my brother passed, I don't think I barely ate for a week and a half, but writing honestly was the one thing that saved me at that point. I wrote a thing that, I ended up reading it at his services, and I put it in the book. I had debated doing that because, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't think that it was really like my best piece, but it was just that piece that kind of, got me to pick myself up and just get going again. And so, yeah, but it just took such a long time.
It always does. I think that the people who can just slam this stuff out are few and far between. But you have to
one of those people.
Yeah. Well, you have to live with what you create, though. So I mean, take the time it takes. You have to be happy with it. Everyone is their own worst audience in a lot of ways. So
yeah,
don't even stress that. But I will say that it's interesting because one conversation that's been ongoing in this community is how recently not as recently in fiction, but very recently in film, the horror genre's best work has been turning towards sorrow and grief as the cornerstone emotions. Horror in literature had already kind of made that turn probably 10 years ago, to be honest. But film is getting around to it recently with films like Relic and Dark and the Wicked and The Empty Man. Whereas it's not about trying to scare you, although there are scary elements, definitely, as much as it's to make you think about loss and our own regrets and our own fears about the life we probably would have preferred to live, which is impossible now because we're where we are, right? So it sounds like you were going through that process of finding those ways to work it into your fiction from your real life.
Yeah, I know that, like, I've seen it said and written that, like, where some people are just like, I don't put anything of myself in my work, and I just think, like, how is that?
That's not possible.
Bullshit. How is that? How do you not do that? I mean,
I don't like calling people liars, but that person's a liar. It's too much work. Seriously, if you're a garbage collector, I'm sure another garbage collector can look at how you do your job and go, that's his thing or that's her thing, right?
Yeah.
How doing this, working with raw language to create, can it not be personal? I mean, maybe you're writing stereo instructions, but other than that, even that to a degree. Just want to point out a couple things. Daniel, a friend of the show, and also one of the key voices in the community of Flesh Wound Radio, just said you just sold him on Glass Slipper Dreams. He just grabbed it on his Amazon.
Yay! Thank you. Thank you. That's so awesome.
Supporting artists is the most important thing you'll do all day. I promise you, every day, people. And Jacob says, your short story, The Key is the Key, managed to do in a short what Memento tried and failed to do as a feature film. Is psychological horror your favorite subgenre?
I guess it depends. I guess I prefer that over like just excessive gore. I've never actually seen Memento, by the way. That's one of the, I have a horrible track record with watching movies, especially horror movies. And Ed he's been giving me a hell of an education in the almost 4 years that we've been together. I mean, before him, I have never watched the Friday the 13th series, the Nightmare on Elm Street series, the Halloween series, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yeah, I've seen all of those like in the last 2 years.
I'm not sure if that's the healthiest way to watch them. I'm just saying. I listen. I like what I like, and I wouldn't trade anything I love for anything. But yeah, I think you want to spread those out a little bit more.
No, those were like a month-long binge. I mean, like the Friday the 13th series. I think we were watching like 3 of them a night or something.
And it still took you a week. So there you go.
Yeah.
All right, we have a question from Chaz4543 here. And it's way not having anything to do with anything, but she's a Pearl Jam fan. Top 5 Pearl Jam albums. Then I'll give you mine, which is going to be a lot less interesting to you.
Oh, gosh. This changes. I can't give a straight answer to anything, can I? I love No Code. I did not like it when it came out, but I love it now. It took a long time for that to grow on me. I've always been a big fan of Yield. Gosh, why am I blanking? Jesus. I guess to put it a different way, I'm not as familiar with Riot Act and the Avocado album, and probably Gigaton also. Although I really did Dance of the Clairvoyants. I've seen them 9 times. I do have tickets for a 10th show at Madison Square Garden whenever people will just get their shit together and like put a mask on so we can, get COVID kind of out of the way and we could, go back to like doing things again.
At this point, I just want needles and arms.
I'm sorry?
At this point, I just want needles and arms.
Yeah.
I'm just over it. Done. Let's all just line up right now. That's it.
Mm-hmm. You said
you ready for my list?
Yeah.
Coming in at number 5, 10. Coming in at number 4, 10. Coming in at number 3, 2, and 1, 10. I pretty much stop at the first album. I think half of Verses resonates with me and the other half really doesn't. But by the time you get to Vitology, an album that really angered me when it came out, I checked out. Now, I'm sure they've produced some great stuff since, but as much as I loved 10, it was a quick drop off for me. Listen, I'm a Soundgarden guy, so you throw the bricks now. I don't care.
I love Soundgarden too. My favorite by them is Louder Than Love, for sure.
A really underrated record because it's a short record. That's why it doesn't have their like 12-minute epic song in the middle of it. But I'm a Bad Motorfinger guy.
That's a good one too.
Everyone forgets that record was out for that entire summer before Nevermind came out and was charted all summer. So we think of Nevermind having like broken alternative, and truth is that Bad Motorfinger had been on the charts for months by then, and the last Mother Love Bone album a year and a half before had been a real heavy hitter for Seattle. I mean, it sold lots of records. So it wasn't quite as abrupt as we tend to think it is. It's just that MTV turned on a dime, right?
Yeah.
They started playing Smells Like Teen Spirit and stopped playing Warrant, and that made people think it was a moment in time.
Cherry Pie.
I'm just picking on Warrant because, I pick on Great White, but now that's all kinds of tragic. So,
yeah. I will say though, out of the whole Seattle scene of the early '90s, as much as I did Pearl Jam, favorite band, I love them. I met Mike McCready, almost cried. I asked to get a picture with him, and my hands were like shaking. This. I don't even know how I unlocked the password on my phone. I was just freaking out so bad. I still think the best album to come out of that era was Dirt, hands down. Dirt.
I can see that argument.
Dirt's a fucking masterpiece. It's just it's perfect. I love it.
I think there's a lot of great bands. I think there's a lot of great bands right now that are not getting their due. Now that if you're into hard rock, alternative metal is kind of what's happening right now. Go to Sirius, turn on Octane, and just listen to what some of these bands are doing, and you'll be really very surprised. It's not quite the knuckle dragging that we associate with metal at its worst, right? But I've always said that I think that the early '90s were the last great creative period in rock and roll, and I hope we have another. I hope we're right on the iceberg of another. But and I'll say that I think it might be the pinnacle of rock and roll too. I don't think there's another time period. You'd have to say like early '60s and then early '90s. Mm-hmm. Maybe I mean I love the punk rock explosion, but talk about 3 fucking years. That's it.
Yeah.
And it was done.
And I see that Jack Herringa in the comments mentioned the Screaming Trees. And yes, I love the Screaming Trees. I wish they had kind of gotten bigger than they did.
Yeah, and the first 2 A&M records from Soul Asylum before they went to Sony were pretty amazing. I mean, the Sony records are very simple for the time, but those early records are really good. I even think when the more commercial bands of the period, which are kind of easy to dismiss, like your Collective Souls and your Candleboxes, they were still putting in the first Bush record. They were still putting in really solid work. It's just it wasn't outrageously different, like when you compare the Screaming Trees to Tad to the first Hole record, the real first Hole record, the one that was on Caroline, Pretty on the Inside. It was a massively different scene. And it slowly became kind of formulaic over the course of that decade. But I think even the later stuff is pretty damn good. You look back at it now and you're like, you know what? Deep Blue Something, we're actually writing good songs. That's the thing. All right, we got to get off of 90s rock here because...
Oh, okay. I will go on for hours about that.
Well, the problem is so will I. I mean, you're wearing a Pearl Jam shirt. I'm wearing a Jackson guitar shirt. So we're... But Dan isn't going to let us completely off the hook. He says, do you listen to any particular band as mood music while you write?
Yeah, it depends. I have a thing about just listening to things like constantly on repeat. So like I'm trying to think, like I tend to do, sometimes I do soundtracks. I'm freaking addicted. No surprise considering we were talking about this at the top of the hour. The Carrie soundtrack, the original. I think I listen to that every morning. Sometimes I have sometimes I'll put on the original Star Wars or Rogue One soundtracks. But then sometimes I also listen to a lot of, I don't know how you would classify it, I guess post-90s Britpop. I'll probably get shot, but I don't care. I love Coldplay, although I have not bought the last album. But I'm like really big right now into Travis and Keane and Star Sailor and the Verve and some of Richard Ashcroft's solo stuff. But that stuff I can just kind of put it on quietly and it doesn't really like affect too much, I guess. But yeah, like that or soundtracks, usually what I go with. once in a while silence. But
silence is the toughest thing for me to write in. I think I need a small amount of distraction just to get away from the idea that, I mean, writing is kind of bridging the conscious and the subconscious on some level. And it's a process that if you think about, you're kind of fucked. You want to just do it, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I definitely need a small amount of distraction without it becoming overbearing. But that said, I mean, I definitely, if I'm writing something violent and fast-paced, and I definitely want music that keeps me at that tempo. So, I mean, right at the moment, I'm listening to a lot of Bring Me the Horizon and a lot of Bad Omens. Those two bands really, at the moment, I think they're doing great things. And it's also, it kind of, because they're aggressive and antisocial in their own ways, I think that really helps inform where my headspace should be. So I am a big believer that music can be used properly. Talk to a lot of writers, and a lot of them tell me I'm dead wrong. They have to work in silence. That would drive me nuts.
Yeah, I can only do it every so often, but like I really like having some background noise. It just, I don't know, it just kind of, it helps. And I think like too, just because I've listened to music for like just so much constantly, I think that's where kind of I pull a lot of that, like the rhythm and stuff you were talking about earlier was just trying to make things flow. And I mean, I wanted to be a poet at one time. I don't think that I don't think that was my calling.
I would be honest with you. I'm a huge Lovecraft fan, but I think that you'd produce better poetry than he did. Easily, because I think his poetry is abysmal. So you're off the hot pad right there when you're already better than a legend. No, I don't think you have to go all the way to writing poetry to kind of affect the same kind of literary change that the poets do. Listen, my teacher from my youth and one of my big mentors, Miss Lois Herod, is just pre-orders on her new book just came out. I support everything she does, but poetry is tough for me to get into in its pure form. I'm not going to be one of these guys that lies and becomes, oh, no, I love all kinds of literature. Nah, things are tough for me too, But I mean, I own every collection of Patti Smith's poetry that exists, and I've read them all once. But no, I think that you're doing exactly what you should. You're using your talents exactly where you should be using them. I would be fascinating to see a long form work from you, because I think you'd have to kind of rethink part of the process, because long is just different, right? But I'd be fascinating to see. And that leads us right to Jacob's question here. Do you have a short story from Glass Slipper Dreams that you're most proud of?
Let me see. Let me have a look here. Wait. Oh crap! I just realized there's no table of contents in here.
That's gonna upset someone.
Yeah. Gosh, that I'm most proud of. I know, like one of the ones that kind of meant the one that was the oldest in here was Cold, which was just reprinted in One of Us, a tribute to Frank Michaels Arrington. I had started that particular story back in 1996, and it was just one of those I wrote it, stopped, went back to it, and it just every few years it would just kind of keep calling to me again and just be like, hey, work on me. And so I mean, that one I was definitely really so super happy to see in print. Another one of my most favorites in here is Best Served Warm. I love starting off a reading with that one because it's just that one that, based on how the crowd reacts, I'm like, okay, well, what kind of, it's just to gauge them, just.
Yeah, definitely. I want to get to reading your own work aloud in a second, because that's a topic that terrifies me. But I'll just say that if anyone cares, in my collection of my stories. Pressed Butterflies is by far my favorite of my work from that. I don't consider myself a writer of Gothic fiction, but that one is. And I think it works. And it's always when you go out of your comfort zone and you read something and you realize, like, I think I pulled it off. That's more impressive than when you go to your sweet spot that you're kind of good at. And you're like, oh, yep, that worked. Which probably isn't how the readers respond, but definitely is how I respond.
Well, one of the ones that had surprised me was a couple of years ago, I co-wrote a story with my fiance, Ed Kurtz, for the Lost Highways anthology from Crystal Lake. And that ended up being kind of gory, which is really not my wheelhouse. And I think it kind of had a bit of a split reaction. I remember seeing a review where somebody was like, I stopped reading after the first story because there was so much swearing in there. And I was like, really? Like, I didn't think there was that much in there. I mean, the two of us are like big old potty mouths and stuff, but I don't know. But in the end, it ended up getting reprinted in the year's best hardcore, which was like really a shock to me because that's not a place where I would have like ever imagined I would, get into. So that was kind of neat.
Yeah, I think that, but you see, that's the thing. I think that's the stories are what they are, right? Mm-hmm. So, and sometimes you realize it way before you start writing, and sometimes like it's along the way they go. I don't want to say they go where they go because that's kind of like writer crap. That's like magic thought crap. But again, it's about that bridging of the subconscious and conscious. And sometimes when something really disturbs you or really grosses you out on a level, it makes its way to the page. Mm-hmm. And it's not a magical process. I do think it's a psychological process. And I think, unlike every other artist in every other form, like, do actually get to know way too much about the writers that you follow. If you could just decode properly, oh my God, you're peeking in every window of our houses. Mm-hmm. So just be careful with that. So reading your own work, I've done a few readings and I hate it. I don't have a problem with public speech, obviously, right? But I in fact, professionally, that was always part of my world, is speaking to groups and training and developing people. But reading my own work aloud terrifies me. I hate it. It's literally probably one of my least favorite things to do. I'd rather do have dentistry work done easily. So how do you feel about it? And do you have any tips for those of us who are hopeless?
I mean, if it had been back when I was like a little kid, I'd be the same way. I'd be like, absolutely freaking terrified. I've always been a very shy and quiet kind of person, like hide behind my skirts or hide behind my mom's skirts when I was a kid, and in high school, I joined the drama club because I figured that would help me with kind of coming out of my shell and doing other things like learning to project my voice and putting the right emphasis and inflections here and there where it needed to be. And that really helped. So when it comes down to it now, it's like, I do like doing it. But I still always, without fail, like just get those butterflies like about a minute before. And I'm just like, oh crap, it's that time. But then once I, start, I'm just going, and I try not to stumble, and I usually almost always like mess up something at some point because I just start reading a little bit too fast because I get nervous.
Well, I just blame that on from being from Jersey. I'm just like, I speak fast. I'll just keep going. You won't even know I messed up, really. Is anyone really listening? Come on. So where do you think horror is going over the next few years? I mean, I definitely think the emotional range is changing to suit where we are as a people and as a society. But where do you see it going in the short term?
I see a lot of, and I don't know if it's kind of a sub-genre of sorts, but like I see a lot of like weird coming in. Like there's all this talk of weird horror and weird fiction. And I mean, I don't know if it's just kind of like the circles that I'm kind of in on Facebook or whatever, but you know, there's a lot of that, a lot of weird, and like what you had said earlier with you know, with the emotions, with like grief and stuff, like that made me think of Ari Aster, Hereditary and Midsummer. Jesus Christ, both of those. I was just...
Hereditary is a modern masterpiece, not just a horror of film, period.
Yeah, that that scene where she's just screaming and grieving, I lost it too. That took me completely off guard. Like, but it was just so fucking well done.
It's a masterclass in developing an internal language, which is what's so amazing. From the bird decapitation with the scissors being an obvious precursor to what happens in the roadway. And I don't want to spoil the movie for anyone who hasn't seen it, but by the same rate, if you're watching this show and you haven't seen Hereditary yet, you kind of deserve it to be spoiled for you. What are you doing with your life? How many times do we have to tell you? But I mean, but the movie does that consistently all the way through. It's not just simple setups and punchlines, which is what all drama kind of does. It's really insidious how the movie weaves a tapestry of ideas and then pays them off. Sometimes in ways that you're just not expecting, but catch you so off guard that you have kind of a visceral reaction to. Yeah. Every once in a while, I meet someone who says, "Oh, that movie didn't affect me at all," and I'm just like, "You're not human. You were sent back in time. You're right. I mean, something's wrong." Jacob wants to get in a compliment here. Your story, Divorce and Roadkill, was definitely the one that upsettled me the most. We're not even going to go there. I'm sure if you read it aloud to a group, it would leave quite an impression. Rough stuff.
Thank you for that. That was a bit of a rough one for me to write, because I mentioned it in the story notes at the end that some of that stuff was well, I mean, the incident with the bird sort of had happened to me, and then I just kind of filled in all around it with other things, and yeah, that was a tough one. I see a kitty.
There's a few of them up here now.
Oh.
The voice draws them. I don't. It was one of the previous couple shows, but one of them decided to climb me with claws out during the show. That was pretty exciting. So there's always the possibility of real bloodshed on the show with these wild beasts in the house.
Oh, I see another comment from Jacob about not having seen The Exorcist in the 70s. I have not seen The Exorcist.
Have you read The Exorcist?
No.
So you haven't read?
I have not read it.
So what do you own that Cemetery Dance edition that has both Exorcist and Legion as one binding, by chance?
No.
So you have homework. I don't want you to buy that edition because it's ungodly expensive right now. But I'm like one of the biggest Blatty fans you'll ever friggin' meet. I was lucky enough to spend a little bit of an evening with him, and he was an amazing person overall. At the point where I have that edition of it too. I think the government was actually sending that out with copies of Fleetwood Mac Rumors to every household about in 1976 or something. But no, those two books are really, really remarkable for what they. I don't think we'd have anything that we have today in the horror genre without Blatty's work. I really don't. Thomas Tyron is the other guy who's driver and who's always like forgotten when we have these discussions. It's like Stephen King came out of the mist. Nothing existed before him. But the truth is, we had a lot of transitionary figures, and The Exorcist and Legion. Don't sleep on Legion. It's not just a sequel. It's, in my opinion, it's even the better book of the two. But you kind of need The Exorcist first. But they're amazing. Definitely get back to me and let me know what you think after you get through them, because also, like, best dialogue ever written, period. Amazing.
You know what? I'm just gonna take it out now and just leave it out.
Note to self.
Read. Get this off the TBR shelf and into the smaller TBR pile.
You know what my biggest problem is with my TBR pile is that as I do these shows, like, the work from the guests that I have not read goes on it, and it just keeps building. And it's like, I have stuff that I buy because it's like, ooh, the new whatever is out, I need to buy that. And then, of course, it's like, but I have, someone coming up on the show and I haven't read all the work. So I feel like, and in some cases, it's just freaking impossible. Like, some of these guys have been doing this for decades, and it's like, there's no way I'm going to read everything. And they don't expect me to either, but it's just, that's always tough. But so far I haven't had anyone like beat me up too bad for not having read all their stuff. Oh, now you see, now wait, we got to stop everything here. Now Sean is just being cruel again. He says, watch St. Maud when you get the chance, Daniel. So we were getting it in a week and a half in America. Everyone just calm down. But all you Brits that got it last month, there's a reason we fought 2 wars with you, okay? And who won both those wars? You might get St. Maud, we got independence. Just remember. Actually, I'm just jealous. That's just pure, God, honest truth jealousy. And Dan saying he's holding out for theaters for St. Maud, but that might not happen before I see an import. The problem is there's an Australian import and a German import that are coming out on the 1st. Both of them are going to take you better part of a month to get here. The Australian one will take forever to get here. The German one's your better bet, but it's $50. Who wants to do that? That's just the cost. That's not the shipping price either. So Joshua Saxon wants us not to talk about St. Maud, I think, because he asks a good question, which is, do you have a favorite underappreciated horror book or movie?
Let me think. I'm going to give a shout out to Joshua Saxon right here. He did, he does audiobooks, and oh Lord, this man's voice. He did, Ed's Western Boone, and it just sounds amazing. Yeah, you should go check that out. I mean, get the book or get the audiobook, whichever. It's awesome. Ed based that, kind of based it on me, actually.
Is everything okay?
Oh yeah. Oh no, Boone is about a Thai American girl in the 1800s who is she kicks ass and she's pretty good with a gun.
Oh, well, that's good. I support that.
I held a gun, so, but
well, come on out here. We'll go to the range. It changes your perspective on things in a very positive way. Don't worry, you won't start wearing baseball caps or anything. But it's just.
Gosh,
it also makes writing that stuff easier too.
Try to think of favorite. That's very true. That's a good point. Underappreciated. Oh gosh. I'm blanking again.
And I'm doing the same thing. I'm looking over my essentials bookcase, going,
Oh, you know what? I don't know if this one has gotten a whole lot of love. I don't know how well you could see it. Little Star.
Give me a second, and bam, there you can see it better. Oh,
yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely, by the author of Let the Right One In.
Yeah, Let the Right One In is one of my definite favorite movies from the last decade. And I started looking up some of his other books, and I had picked up this one, and it's so good. It's so disturbing. Gosh, if I think of what else, there's really just so much stuff like in horror, especially in books. I feel like that just does not get enough love, and I could just probably just go through my shelves and just show off like everything. God, who else? What else?
Well, I'll scream out Elizabeth Massey's Sin Eater. If you have not read this novel, it's just a cornerstone classic of the genre from a time when horror was kind of in dire straits, and we desperately needed new voices at this exact moment. And listen, Massey's one of my favorites anyway, but this book kind of jump-started everything for her.
I haven't read that yet. I do have, I've got one of her collections around here that I read and I enjoyed.
One of my great points of pride is that when Elizabeth blurbed my third book, it was a big deal to me because she's a hero, and that was definitely a really big moment. In film, I just actually tonight sort of revisited because I thought I'd seen it, and I'm not convinced that's true anymore. What have they done to your daughters? Dallamano's semi-sequel to What Have They Done to Solange. I'm going through a huge revisiting all the Giallos period, and goddamn, that movie's good. Like, that movie is shockingly good. And the fact that it's a cheap exploitation like Giallo from the mid-70s, I think sometimes we let the reputation of these things become reality, and it shouldn't.
I'm trying to think if I had seen either one of those, because I know that we've been watching, we kind of just binge a lot of whatever just Ed kind of not controls, but it's just sort of like, he kind of puts on a lot of the movies and stuff, and I just kind of go along for the ride.
Is there a padlock on the refrigerator as well? You can be honest.
No, I know you asked me if I want to watch something.
I'm just kidding.
No, he's over here on the couch going, I always ask you if you want to watch movies, which he does. He does.
Do you guys have Shudder?
Yes. We actually watched, right before I got on here, we were watching Psycho Goreman.
Everyone's telling me, but I have not gotten to it yet.
That's crazy.
All right, then I guess I got to do it.
Yeah.
You're going to be the one that pushes me over the edge. All right, so what's coming up from you that we can keep our eyes open for, or is there anything that people should head on over to Amazon right now to pick up?
All right, so let me see here. I came somewhat prepared. Campfire Macabre just came out a couple weeks ago, and I've got a flash fiction story in here called Heartwood. I had fun writing that one. I also had a lot of help from beta readers who really helped me bring it up a level, and I'm so grateful to them. I'm so grateful for beta readers. And then I've also got, this is my charitable chapbook, Watch the Whole Goddamn Thing Burn. This is just, this one's available at Nightscape Press. I haven't checked lately, but I think it's a limited edition of 100 copies, and I think there's about 24 left the last time I checked. That one is about a Thai-American girl who is, she's got a not great relationship with her mother. She's dealing with a psycho ex-boyfriend and grief, because bad relationships and grief seem to be two of my hallmarks. And It starts off with her an act of revenge that she does, and then over the rest of the story, you find out why she did this and what the consequences are, and it's pretty dark. I'm proud of it.
The dark stuff's always easy to be proud of.
Yeah.
So there is a bunch of links in the description under this video already to where they can keep up with you. If there's anything else you want me to add, just let me know and I will do so. Okay. Is there any social media in particular you prefer the people to follow?
Let me see here. I've been getting a little bit more active on Twitter in the last year or so. I kind of still mostly hang out over in Facebook land, but I'm also really, really slow at accepting friend requests and stuff. So, but I do have an author page, but I'm kind of bad about updating that as well. But I mean, yeah, I pretty much just have like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and I'm just sorry, got distracted. Squirrel. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much about it, really. And I go through phases where I just kind of keep my head down and lurk because I just don't want to, like, I don't know, get involved.
Well, it's all social media platforms are cities, right? There's great museums you can visit. There's some great restaurants, but there's also some scary back alleys.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And there's just as many people rolling around as in any city with all kinds of different motivations. So I definitely can understand that. So before I let you go, when can we expect you to attack that novel?
Oh, good God. I have no idea. I've got one idea that I've had for a while that was a short story, but I think it needs to be more. But I haven't really done anything with it. But I just haven't been doing a whole lot lately. Like right now, I'm working on a collaboration with Ed for an anthology, and that should be, I think, out later this year. And then I have another story for a different anthology to work on, which I think is also due out later this year. And I do want to get to longer things. So hopefully in a year or two. I mean, which sounds so bad, but I've got a day job. And unfortunately, that kind of takes up a lot. And I do have one question. Sorry about that. I see Daniel in the comments had mentioned an action figure line for Psycho Goreman. Is that like for the characters from Psycho Goreman?
We might have to go send people over to Dan's channel, Flesh Ruined Horror, on YouTube to get an answer to that. Yeah. I think he was just fishing for a plug, and if so, he just won that lottery. But he actually answered the question and says yes. So that's
because when I was watching, I saw at least one or two of those funky alien things, and I was like, I need that thing to be an action figure.
Apparently, someone was listening in the universe.
Yes.
Jacob says, reads Glass Slipper Dreams, folk. Good stuff. Have a good one, guys. Thanks. I want to thank everyone out there who participated in the chat and all the folks that were a little bit too shy to do so and just watched. We'll be back on, I hate to say this because this is going to get me in trouble. Before we do this, yes, on Monday, we're coming back with a community show. It will be, of course, first come, first serve to who wants to jump on and have a discussion about horror, but everyone is invited. The link will be in the description and also at the beginning of the chat. Come on and jump in. Keep in mind, guys, we want, productive conversations. So if you're bringing any drama, don't bother. Because I really don't have the patience anymore. I'm really shallow enough to just not have the patience. And then on Friday, the 29th, I will be joined by the legendary David Morrell, the author of the novel First Blood that introduced the world to John Rambo. So that will be at 8 p.m. on Friday, the 29th. And then the Monday after that, I have Steve Remsnick-Tem joining me at 8 o'clock, another legend in the horror field, especially if you love the short fiction of the early 80s. Mastermind. Complete mastermind. I'll probably gush a little bit too heavy because that's my sweet spot. That's when I was coming up. But I do want to thank everyone. Any final words, Gem?
Thank you. Just thank you for having me on here. I know I was expressed a lot of nervous, like, oh my God, this is going to be live. Oh shit. But it's actually been a lot of fun. And thank you to everybody who had questions and comments. And I appreciate all of you so much.
Go buy some of her books. All right. Stick around on the other side. I'll talk to you for just a second.
Okay.
Night, guys.